Moving sucks. No matter how you slice it, no matter how exciting the prospects or the opportunities that await you in your new home, moving is an arduous, taxing, and emotionally draining experience. And there is no city that is worse to move to than New York City. Now, before I even utter another syllable, I love New York. I lived in New Jersey for college and would take frequent trips to see shows or just experience the Big Apple, baby. By 2019, when I graduated, because I wanted to put my BFA in acting to use, my main choices were either LA or New York. And as a Northern Californian who hates LA with a burning passion, the choice was easy. Brooklyn became my home full-time from December 2018 to March of 2020. So all that being said, moving to New York sucks. The city itself is constantly moving, pushing forward at breakneck speed, meaning you are already behind from the moment you try to make plans to move in the first place. Apartment hunting happens in a weekend, usually setting on a place that ticks 3, or 2, or 1, or who needs boxes anyways? No natural light in your living room? No problem, you won't be spending any time there anyways. And this is true. The entire time I was living in New York, I probably spent a collective 10 hours or less in my shared living space. There was so much to do, experiences to have, and places to visit in the city that really never sleeps. You'd think with so much available to you that the experience of moving to a city like New York is fully and unequivocally positive, and in so many ways it is. But it is also a deeply lonely experience. You only tend to meet people through work, and forging a deep enough bond to become friends in a meaningful way can take a long time. Any concept of who you were and the family, friends, places, and touchstones that you had built up over the years in whatever life you were coming from are totally erased for most people coming to New York. Now, I recognize that this can be totally freeing, and I think some people move to New York specifically for that freedom. Niko Bellic is craving that freedom. That chance at opportunity and the kind of life that he could never have imagined in the war-torn country he's leaving behind. I cannot speak to this aspect of moving to New York. I am born and raised in America and am not the right person to speak on the immigrant experience in relation to moving to New York because I don't want to belittle it or misrepresent it in any way. What I can speak to is how Rockstar is able to capture the emotional weight of that loneliness that lives hand in hand with the experience of moving to New York through the experience of GTA 4. GTA 4 is an interesting game to go back to after playing GTA 5. 5 is more freewheeling, a fun, open sandbox romp that invites all kinds of chaos and silliness, GTA Online taking it even further with every update. And that's mostly due to its setting. Los Santos represents a lot of what LA represents, the end of the line, anything goes, laid-back, hedonistic mecca of the Wild West, where it never rains and snow or humidity would be a sign of the end times. Liberty City represents a lot of what New York represents too. The city itself is oppressive. People line the sidewalks constantly moving because who knows what would happen if they stopped. There's a grounded quality to Liberty City, a place where flying a fighter jet under the Manhattan Bridge would hit just a little bit too close to home, especially in 2008. The buildings are so tall that the sky is only seen through thin slices in the rebar and concrete, the color palette is dull browns and grays, and somehow, it's always fall. To make it clear, I think this is incredible game design. GTA is overtly successful in describing how someone coming to Liberty City would explore it and understand it just like you do when you move to New York. When you move, you choose a borough and a neighborhood. My borough was Brooklyn, and my neighborhood was Clinton Hill. Niko chose Broker and the neighborhood of Hove Beach, where Roman had set up shop. Now, in the game, travel across any of the bridges is blocked by a terrorist threat, so Niko is forced to move only throughout Broker. As a player, you build up your understanding of the different neighborhoods and types of amenities they offer, how to get to the pool hall or burger shot without using your map, that sort of thing. And you do it in to out, the same way that I discovered and understood New York. My circle started on my block or few blocks, and then over the course of a year gradually expanded outward to where I only needed to know when a train was coming to get to where I needed to go, not how to get to the station or rely on Google Maps to tell which station to get off on. Of course, I wasn't blocked from the rest of the boroughs when I lived in New York, but I found it more useful to understand the borough I was in before trying to conquer another. Liberty City is a space that is constantly challenging you as a player, the same way New York City does in real life, forcing you to brave its harsh conditions and situations every time you leave your apartment to get in your car and drive anywhere. But who drives in New York? What fascinates me about GTA 4 is that for a game named after the crime of hijacking motor vehicles, you barely do any driving. Or at least I didn't when I played. The fast travel that exists in the game is either through taxis or the subway system. It's so much more convenient to travel by taxi, and you don't have to worry about accidentally alerting the cops on your way. You move from place to place through blackened loading screens, never really taking in the city, and instead arriving at your destination without much thought. Even the multiple camera systems in the game only ever focus on the car you're in, never on the areas you're driving through. And where are you usually taking these taxis or subways? Why, work, of course. Work to Niko Bellic was much more heightened than the type of work I was doing in New York. He was not working in a fried chicken and pie restaurant, and I was not climbing the ladder of the different mafias of the 5 boroughs and New Jersey. But as Niko progresses through the story, the same type of loneliness that I felt when moving to New York reared its ugly head. Playing for the first time in 2023, I stuck hard to the mainline story, an engaging and satirical romp through the streets of New York that pretty much only rewards the pursuit of the almighty dollar. Living in New York as an actor, I took part-time jobs, usually working exclusively the night shifts in order to free up my days in case I was needed for an audition. The night shift is an interesting phenomenon in terms of the type of person you become while working it. You lose most of your day resting, so you have enough strength to work your shift at night, especially in a service position where you're perpetually on during the times you're working. You spend most of your night in one place, or in transit between your apartment and place of work, and every 2 weeks making just enough to scrape by for rent, starting the cycle over again every month. This cycle creates a deep bond amongst the people you work with, but tends to alienate those that don't exist within your work bubble. And the more I played GTA 4, the more I worked, and the less I answered those phone calls to go bowling.
I've got to go, Roman. I'll talk to you soon.
My work became my life in the game. The personal relationships didn't matter, and in a city full of people, it seemed like the only people Niko would see were people he worked with or for. Through the game, I felt the guilt of not taking enough time to cultivate the relationships in my life because of a constant work schedule, just like the guilt I felt when I wasn't able to see friends consistently because of work when I was living in New York. But in real life, when I had a day off and I felt like I was caught up with my friends and family, I would try to go on a date. What's intriguing about GTA 4 as a study of loneliness is its relationship to dating, that either the first person you date would turn out to be an FBI informant, or the person that you're even considering seriously dating is killed in front of you. These are high-stakes, pivotal moments in the storyline of GTA 4 and completely not the experience of your average human looking to date in New York. But I do think they serve as a microcosm of how whirlwind most romantic involvements are in New York. Now, I fully acknowledge that fleeting relationships can happen anywhere. New York is not the only place that romantic bonds between people form and break, but I think the idea that there are so many people, so many options, that anything is possible is so strong in the cultural makeup of New York as an enticing place to live, in dating and non-dating circumstances. The duality of having such a vast array of options always is that there's never any incentive to commit to any of them, and the loneliness that sets in from the sheer overwhelm of choice creates an isolation and removed sense of self that I was not expecting to have examined by a video game, especially a Grand Theft Auto game. I do think that this solitude is vital to the process of moving to a city like New York. That the experience of examining this type of separation of identity internally as you physically understand the city is key to understanding yourself in a deeper and more meaningful way, within the confines of living as a New Yorker and as a human being overall. Because I'm grateful for the moments of loneliness I felt in New York. I think they gave me a chance to really step back and examine myself and my circumstances in a way that I might not have been confronted with if I lived anywhere else during that period of my life. Niko's loneliness in coming from his home to a city where dreams are made reality, where if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, a city that never sleeps, that is dead and vibrantly alive in the same breath, this city that forces you to confront your own loneliness head on and has no apologies for doing so. It mirrored my own experience of moving to and living in New York in a way that elevated my playthrough of GTA 4 to make it so much more personal. especially since I'm now 3 years removed from living in New York full time. And you're probably like, fuck you, Stu. You only lived in New York for a little bit over a year. You don't even really know what it's like to live there. And to that, I say you're right. And even more reason that New York and Liberty City represent the scattered loneliness that the first year in a new place has to offer. It's the only way I remember the city, through those glimpses of what it was like to live and be lonely there.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.